Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and it's Saturday, week 6. Time for the injury updates across the league. Once I finish up all these player notes, I will update my rankings at every position, give you the final version for week 6. So let us begin. First, we're going to mention all the healthy rosters. If you have any Tennessee Titans, any Philadelphia Eagles, any Detroit Lions, Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears, Baltimore Ravens, or Atlanta Falcons, all the players you were counting on are healthy. All of those rosters are available, with the exception of Brandon Cooks and Britton Covey on IR for Dallas and Philly. But otherwise, everyone's healthy there, and 4 teams are on bye this week. You cannot start any Chiefs, Dolphins, Vikings, or Rams. They are on bye. But let us begin. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order this time, starting with the Washington Commanders, where Brian Robinson is questionable with a knee injury, did not practice all week long. He's still a game time decision, but I really don't expect him to play. It would kind of shock me at this point. Last week, he at least was limited on Friday and got a lot fewer touches. He did score 2 touchdowns, but in a bad matchup against Baltimore. Really don't trust B-Rob this week. I don't think you can start him. I took him out of the rankings. I do not expect him to play. So Eckler moves up. Jeremy McNichols also going to be more involved. Maybe Jaden Daniels could score more rushing touchdowns as well. Brian Robinson was a big part of their goal line offense. So Washington, without Brian Robinson, that is what I'm expecting tomorrow on Sunday. In Tampa, though, Rachaad White, doubtful with a foot injury, limited Wednesday, then downgraded to not practicing at all Thursday or Friday. So really unlikely he suits up, not expecting him to play. Still a game time decision, but not going to trust him at all. And that does open up about 4 targets in this backfield. So Bucky Irving is clearly the guy, and maybe some more targets go to guys like Cade Otton and Jalen McMillan, who looks like he'll play. But overall, I do think you're not trusting anyone extra other than Bucky Irving. Maybe Sean Tucker as the backup running back gets a few more touches, but very unlikely he cracks your lineup. So only Bucky Irving moving up. Unfortunately, Rachaad might lose this job. If Bucky plays well, Rachaad will have a diminished role coming back to the field. In Pittsburgh, though, Cordell Patterson is out, but Jaylen Warren expect him to play limited Wednesday, Thursday, then full in practice on Friday. That knee injury appears to be behind him. So he is a game time decision, but I definitely think he'll suit up, and that means Najee Harris is no longer as safe. The volume is not going to be as high for Najee, who's already not that valuable without a single touchdown this year. He has barely gone over 8 or 9 points this season. So Jaylen Warren, vulturing some value for Najee, still probably not starting him, but Russell Wilson is active. He'll be the backup behind Justin Fields, and the wide receiver rookie Roman Wilson expecting to play. He has not been healthy much this year. In the Jets offense, though, Aaron Rodgers is questionable with an ankle injury, and he was limited all week in practice, but expect him to play. I think it's just veteran rest overall. Tyler Conklin, though, the tight end, questionable as well with a hip injury. Just like Rodgers, he was limited all week in practice. I am expecting him to play. So the Jets offense should be fine. With no looming trade for Davante Adams, I think all of the players still retain the same value. In the Giants offense, though, bummer with Malik Nabers, who's ruled out for the 2nd straight week with that concussion, and that does open the door for Darius Slayton once again. He played well last week. Wan'Dale Robinson could get more targets, and Theo Johnson might be relevant as a low-end streaming tight end, but probably not. Devin Singletary is questionable, though, with a groin injury. Limited all week in practice, much better than last week. Expect him to play. He's still a game-time decision, but I do think he'll be on the field. So that really vultures some value for Tyrone Tracy. He definitely moves down if Singletary is available, and it's a Sunday night game. I think you'd want to handcuff Tracy to Singletary before you lock him into your lineup. We'll find out closer to kickoff. In New Orleans, though, Derek Carr is out. Spencer Rattler will get the start, and that is a downgrade overall to a guy like Chris Olave. Rashid Shaheed still kind of the same boom-bust option. Deep target, as always. Alvin Kamara might get a few more looks this week, but maybe Kendre Miller does get on the field. It looks like he'll get activated. He was full in practice this week, coming off of IR is what I'm expecting. But Taysom Hill is out once again. He will not be a factor in their offense. In New England, though, Rhamondre Stevenson out this week with a foot injury. He did not practice at all this week. So Antonio Gibson is the starter, going to see a lion's share of touches, at least like 80% in my opinion. His only backup would be JaMychal Hasty. So he might get even more rush attempts and targets, especially with Drake May at quarterback. They will try to protect the rookie quarterback making his debut. So overall, I think it's just positive news for the Houston defense, but I do think Antonio Gibson is a very legit plug and play, a high-end flex, low-end RB2 this week as the starter for the Patriots. In Las Vegas, Davante Adams out once again with that hamstring injury / trade request. I kind of feel like it's more the trade request that's keeping him off the field. And if that's the case, we probably won't get much clarity for him for another month. The trade deadline is November 5th, and until he's fully healthy, that might prevent other teams from trading for him. They want to know they're getting a healthy player. At this stage of his career, he's not the safest bet to stay healthy. So Davante Adams not going to play, and I'm not really sure about Jakobi Meyers either. Questionable with an ankle injury, did not practice Wednesday or Thursday, but was limited on Friday, and he's a 50-50 game time decision. So not the safest bet, not the easiest matchup either against Pittsburgh. I don't feel too good about Jakobi Meyers. So maybe Trey Tucker and DJ Turner get some more targets. I think overall it's just more looks for Brock Bowers. But Zamir White also questionable this week with the groin injury. Same situation as Jakobi Meyers. Did not practice Wednesday or Thursday, but was limited on Friday and is trending towards a 50-50 game time decision this week. If he plays, I'm not starting him. He's been bad this year, but Amir Abdullah would lose all value. I would still prefer Madison in this offense the most, but not enough to start. He does not crack my top 30 rankings. Michael Mayer also out this week, so Brock Bowers going to be the number one target, kind of the only player in Vegas that you trust. In LA for the Chargers, though, Gus Edwards is out this week, and that means J.K. Dobbins will see even more work. I'm not quite sure who his backup is, though. It's between Kimani Vidal and Hassan Haskins, and we'll find out who would be the third stringer to look out for in this offense. But they should be a lot healthier and better overall. Joe Alt, the right tackle, is active, and I do think Rashawn Slater plays. He's questionable, but was practicing this week. I think he'll be available for the Chargers. So as long as the tackles are healthy, I feel a lot better about this offense. J.K. Dobbins is a much safer play this week. With the tackles healthy and no Gus Edwards, he should see a lot of work. And Justin Herbert was full in practice on Friday with that ankle injury, so he will suit up. That is positive news. Herbert is a lot healthier, but DJ Chark remains on IR. He's not returning just yet. In Jacksonville, Evan Engram questionable with a hamstring injury, limited all week in practice, trending in the right direction. Still a game time decision, but very positive news. I do expect him to play. So maybe there's a few less targets for some of the wide receivers, but Gabe Davis is questionable himself. With a knee injury, limited all week in practice, I also expect him to play. I think he'll be fine. Kind of dealt with the same situation last week. So overall, the only player moving down the list would be Brenton Strange, and Travis Etienne is active with that shoulder injury. Kept him limited all week in practice, but should play. He will play alongside Tank Bigsby. In Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor is out for the second straight week, so Trey Sermon gets the upgrade, and he is active. He was full in practice on Thursday and Friday after missing Wednesday. So they were just being cautious with his collarbone injury. He appears to be fine, and him and Tyler Goodson will be the guys in this backfield. However, it looks like Anthony Richardson will get the start, so probably fewer checkdowns to these running backs. Sermon had 6 targets last week from Flacco, and I don't expect that at all from Richardson. So Sermon, I think, loses value, assuming Richardson is the starter. He's still questionable, a game time decision, but he was full in practice on Thursday, surrounding limited sessions on Wednesday and Friday. So because he was full just one of those days, I think he will be active. I do think Richardson gets the start, and you can't really trust the wide receivers as much, but their health is also kind of weird. Michael Pittman was expected to miss this game, didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday with a back injury, but then was full in practice on Friday. So he's still questionable, but I am expecting him to play. I think Pittman will be available. Same situation with Josh Downs. Didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday with a toe injury, but did go full in practice on Friday, and he is questionable. I do expect him to play as well, but neither is as safe without Flacco. The targets are just not as catchable, and it's just not as guaranteed. The floor is not there for Pittman and Downs with Richardson like it is with Flacco. So they're just not as safe. I think overall the Titans defense is a bit more interesting because Richardson is the quarterback. In Houston, though, Nico Collins was placed on IR earlier in the week. As expected, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and Stephon Diggs get more targets, but Joe Mixon, questionable with an ankle injury, didn't practice Wednesday, but then was limited Thursday and Friday, and it sounds like he is expected to play. So he is the guy to start in Houston. No more Cam Akers or Dare Ogunbowale. I don't even think they're the backups because Dameon Pierce is active. He practiced in full this week. It's been a while since he's been on the field. So he'll back up Mixon. I think you can definitely cut Akers and Ogunbowale. I don't expect anything from them. But Robert Woods is out himself. So maybe there's a few random targets for John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. But overall, I'm just trusting Diggs, Dell, and maybe Schultz as a desperation start at tight end. In Green Bay, though, Christian Watson questionable with an ankle injury, limited all week in practice, still a game time decision, a little bit higher than 50-50. I think odds are he plays, but it's not guaranteed, and Romeo Doubs will be active back from that one-game suspension that the team gave him last week. So overall, I think this is a big downgrade for Dontavian Wicks. He's probably back to the fourth guy, and I don't really feel confident with any other player than Jaden Reed or Tucker Kraft starting them in the Packers offense. It's kind of too many mouths to feed type of situation. So the receivers overall get a downgrade, but Luke Musgrave is on IR, so Tucker Kraft still a must-start tight end. And Marshawn Lloyd, the backup running back, probably going to return from IR in week 7. It sounds like they're optimistic that will happen. Not this week, but maybe next. In Denver, wide receiver Josh Reynolds is out, and maybe a few more targets are available for Cortland Sutton and Lil Jordan Humphrey, but I'm not starting any of them. I don't feel confident about that offense. Audric Estime, expected to play, was full in practice this week, so probably going to be activated off of IR before this game. Who knows, maybe he's more valuable than Javonte rest of season. I will be keeping an eye on Estime's usage this week. In Cleveland, though, Nick Chubb, still not ready to return, will be out, and they have a bye in week 10, so I really don't think they're going to push it with him. Even if he comes back before then, I expect a timeshare between him and Jerome Ford, at least until after the bye. Things might change starting week 11. In Cincinnati, though, Chase Brown with a quad injury is questionable. He was full on Wednesday, but then limited Thursday and Friday in practice. But according to the coach, he is good to go. Expect Chase Brown to play. Zach Moss is also active. He was limited early in the week, but then full in practice on Friday, and he's off the injury report. Zach Moss is available. In Carolina, Jonathan Brooks still remains on IR. He did not practice at all this week, but according to him, he might return to practice in week 7, and that would open his 21-day window to return. So we might see him on the field in the next 3 weeks, but not in week 6. Diontae Johnson, questionable with an ankle injury, limited all week in practice. Kind of the same situation as last week, expecting to play. Diontae should be fine. In Buffalo, Khalil Shakir, questionable with an ankle injury, didn't practice all week until Saturday when he was limited. So still a game time decision. Not an ideal player to trust, though. It's a Monday night game, and there aren't many options to pivot to that you actually trust at wide receiver or flex in that game. So Khalil Shakir probably suits up. I'm not quite sure, but kind of a gamble given the time of the week. Not other options available to pivot to. James Cook, also questionable, didn't practice Wednesday through Friday, but was limited on Saturday, and he sounds a lot more likely to suit up. They are expecting him to be available, but similar to Shakir, it's a Monday night game. He's a game time decision, and you'd have to pivot to Ray Davis if he's unavailable. So kind of risky. James Cook should play, but it's not 100% guaranteed. So I would keep Ray Davis on the roster, on the bench, if he suits up. If you have to pivot off of Shakir or James Cook, I think he would be the guy who benefits the most alongside Ty Johnson. I would only trust Ray Davis, though, of the two. So the Buffalo offense kind of a little dicey this week, but in Arizona, last player I'll mention, coming off a 5-game suspension, Zay Jones is out with a hamstring injury. He will not play. Still, that Cardinals offense looks the same. But there are some weather updates I want to mention. In Green Bay, the Cardinals versus Packers game, there is rain expected, at least a 50% chance all throughout, and the winds are going to be between 10 and 15 miles per hour. The offenses might lean a little bit more on the run because of the weather. In New England, the Texans and Patriots game, There's a small chance of rain. Weather might be a factor there as well. Otherwise, we're all good to go. But lastly, I want to mention the Chicago Bears defense. There are a lot of injuries for Chicago at the moment, especially in the secondary. Jaquan Brisker is out, the safety, not even traveling with the team. Terrell Smith, the corner, also did not travel. And then cornerback Tyreek Stevenson is doubtful as well. So they still have Jalen Johnson, an elite corner, but otherwise, 3 of their main secondary options are unavailable. And that does open the door for Trevor Lawrence and these receivers. I do think the Bears defense might struggle a little bit in London with all of these injuries in the secondary. So that's relevant, but let's get into my rankings. I did change a lot of stuff overall. So let's begin at running back here, where the top 8 remain the same. Saquon through Dave Montgomery, I'm not changing my opinion on, but I am bumping up Josh Jacobs and James Conner because of the weather in this game. I do think they'll lean a little more on the run. Given the rain, I do think Jacobs and James Conner are safer. So Jacobs moves up 1 spot, Conner moves up 3 spots, and they jump Jordan Mason overall. He moves down a little bit. He did get injured on Thursday. Chuba Hubbard, though, moves up 1 spot, and Joe Mixon moves up 40 spots because I'm ranking James Cook a little bit lower. I definitely trust Mixon as a top 15 play. If he's going to suit up, then he's a must start. He's definitely a safe floor play. However, James Cook is less safe, especially because it's a Monday night game and he barely practiced on Saturday. I think he'll be available, but you want a backup plan. I don't think it's the safest start overall. So James Cook no longer inside my top 10, not the best option, but if he is available, he's been great this year. I think you're probably going to start him. He's a hard player to bench. So he moves down a tier, but I still think he's in your lineup. Assuming he's active on Monday, he's still top 15 overall. But these other players move down 1 spot because Mixon enters the ranks above them. But I did upgrade J.K. Dobbins 4 spots as well because Gus Edwards is out, and we know for a fact that the tackles are healthy. So Dobbins will be a lot more effective. Kind of a tough matchup against Denver, but still Dobbins should see plenty of volume. Dobbins is a top 20 option. I also think Devin Singletary is top 20. He moves up 40 spots, previously unranked. This is right around where I had Tyrone Tracy, so it's kind of a 1-for-1 swap. The Bengals defense has given up 5 rushing touchdowns this season. Singletary, I think, is a safe bet to find the end zone. I did swap Zach Moss and Chase Brown, though, 1-for-1, because Zach Moss is fully healthy. Chase Brown's still kind of questionable, and I do think Moss will get a few more snaps overall in this game, but I think Chase Brown plays. I think both of them are kind of even. Overall, kind of the same value in this backfield. But Bucky Irving moves up 7 spots. With no Rachaad White, he's a lot safer, but I'm still a little bit worried about the touchdown production in this backfield. So just a low-end RB2, high-end flex play. I do think he's worth a start, though. Definitely trust Bucky Irving a lot more now that Rachaad is doubtful. And Antonio Gibson is a very legit start as well. I'm starting him in the subscriber league this week without Isaiah Pacheco. He is my RB2, and he's moving up 18 spots without Rhamondre Stevenson. I'm a little worried about this offense overall with the rookie, but I expect at least 20 touches for Gibson. I see a lot of volume for him, and he has been extremely efficient with 5.9 yards per carry this season. So Gibson, a high-end flex play, definitely worth a start off the waiver wire. Austin Eckler also moving up 8 total spots. It's a terrible matchup against Baltimore. They have given up very few yards to the running back position. They are very bad in the secondary, but assuming Brian Robinson doesn't play, then Eckler is way, way safer. Going to see a lot of volume, especially in the target department, as well as some goal line looks. Brian Robinson has scored 5 touchdowns this year, so Eckler probably finds the end zone in his place. So Eckler, a very interesting start. I do think he'll go over double digits, at least 11, 12 points expected from Eckler, Gibson, and Bucky Irving. They're all much safer plays this week. However, with Richardson as the quarterback, I expect a lot fewer checkdowns for Trey Sermon, and he could get vultured on the goal line as well. Sermon moves down 6 spots. He is not as safe without Joe Flacco. Tank Bigsby and Etienne stay put, but Rico Dowdle gets such a bad matchup. I think I was just too high on him earlier. He moves down 4 spots overall. Jerome Ford moves up 2 spots just because some other players get taken out, but also Najee Harris moving down 8 spots, definitely not as safe now that Jaylen Warren is active. I have Najee and Jaylen Warren back to back, and I previously did not rank Jaylen Warren. So they are not that safe overall. I really worry about any touchdown viability for either of them. And in more of a committee, I think they both eat into each other's value too much. I am not dying to start Najee or Jaylen Warren this week. But Davante overall moves up 1 spot, so does Alexander Mattison, because Tyrone Tracy moves down 16 spots overall. So he's just a backup this week. He might get involved a little bit if Singletary's not 100%, but I do worry about him. I don't think he has a safe floor anymore. And Tracy is just a handcuff option overall. But I think Jeremy McNichols is a lot more interesting. He moves up 9 spots, now RB 34. Still too low in the ranks to start, but he has scored 3 touchdowns the last 2 games. Maybe it turns into another touchdown this week. But outside the top 40, I'm not starting any of these players, but some of them do move around. I did upgrade Tyler Goodson 6 spots, Jermichael Hasty and Sean Tucker, the backups in the Patriots and Buccaneers offense, they enter the rankings. So does Damian Pierce and Zamir White, but too risky to bet on. And Audric Estime moves up a couple spots, a player to keep an eye on overall. So that's it for running back. Let's move over to wide receiver, where most notably Malik Nabers, who I previously had as a top 2 option, did get taken out. He's kind of the only player that gets removed, but there are some guys that enter the ranks as well. And overall, other than Jamar Chase, everybody should be moving up 1 spot because Malik Nabers is gone. So very few changes in my opinion, but Debo, Chris Godwin, Drake London move up 2 spots only because Jaden Reed moves down. With Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs available, as well as the weather, Jaden Reed is not as safe, but still a top 10 play. You're definitely starting Jaden Reed, but I don't think he's as good as guys like Debo, Chris Godwin, or Drake London. Jaden Reed, not as safe anymore. But the matchup is just so good for Terry McLaurin. I think I was too low in the ranks. I upgraded him 4 spots overall. I now rank Terry as a top 9 play in week 6. I also upgraded Garrett Wilson 2 spots. He basically just swaps Marvin Harrison. Harrison moves down because of the weather, but with no Malik Nabers, he stays put overall. I also upgraded T. Higgins. I feel really confident in T. Higgins. He's seen double-digit targets the last 2 games, and that volume is very safe. Joe Burrow should light it up. So T. Higgins, a good option. And I also feel safer with Brian Thomas Jr., knowing there's all of those injuries in the Chicago Bears secondary. So Brian Thomas moves up 4 spots. He's now a legit wide receiver 2. He's played so well this year, I don't think you can bench Brian Thomas if you have him. But Diontae Johnson gets jumped because of his questionable designation. J-Mo moves up 1 spot. Darnell Mooney and George Pickens, though, move up 2 spots because Tank Dell, I think, deserves a bit of a downgrade. There's some weather concerns in New England, a slight chance of rain, as well as the fact that he's just played bad this season. Tank Dell has not been the best option overall. So expecting a much safer floor from him, but it's just not that guaranteed. Tank Dell is a little more risky. I'd rather go with Mooney or Pickens straight up. I ranked him a little too high earlier on a Wednesday. But Khalil Shakir enters the top 25. This is only assuming that he starts, though. So if you're willing to gamble on him being ruled out on Monday night, then I would hold on. However, finding a good option to pivot to is kind of dicey. I don't feel great about it. So Shakir would be top 30 if available, but I don't think he's like the safest bet overall. You might just want to ignore him. If he plays, I think he's a good start. But if he doesn't, you'll get burned and you will get a bagel. Shakir, probably a safer player to keep on the bench rather than start. But if he does play, I do think he'll go over 12 points. Shakir has been good this season. Amari Cooper, I think, is a safer play than Mike Evans and Chris Olave, so he moves up 3 spots, jumps the 2 of them. But guys like Rashid Shaheed, Wan'Dale Robinson, Christian Kirk, and Calvin Ridley, they mainly move up because Michael Pittman moves down 8 spots. I do not trust Michael Pittman anywhere near as much with Richardson as the quarterback. He's now my wide receiver 34, and I don't think you have to start him. I think it's a very big gamble against L'Jarius Sneed and the Titans. Michael Pittman, not as safe. Him and Jakobi Meyers also didn't practice very much this week, so they moved down overall. I don't think they're the safest bets. I expect less than 9 points from those 2 guys. But behind Meyers, I did include Darius Slayton. He moves up 20 spots overall because Malik Nabers is not going to play. So high upside for him. He is a deep threat, and last week he did pay off. There is some upside. The Bengals defense is pretty ass this year. So Slayton, a very legit streamer in DFS especially. I think he deserves a spot on your roster. Very cheap option with high upside in the Giants offense. Slayton is top 40. Other than that, though, I did downgrade Josh Downs 10 spots overall. He's nowhere near as safe with Richardson as quarterback, and then Keon Coleman also moves down. Assuming Shakir plays, I don't trust Coleman anywhere near as much. I also upgraded Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. I'd rather go Doubs than Watson, given Watson's injury risk, but that means Dontavian Wicks moves down 9 spots overall. There's a lot more risk with anyone other than Jaden Reed if all 4 Packers receivers are healthy. So that's some changes there. Alec Pierce moves down a little bit just because he gets jumped by some other guys. But outside the top 50, the only serious changes would be Trey Tucker entering the top 60. If Jakobi Meyers is not 100%, he might get a few more targets. And lastly, Jalen McMillan at number 60 might score a touchdown if Mike Evans is locked up by Marshawn Lattimore. So wide receiver, a lot of changes overall, but that's it for wide receiver. Let's pivot to quarterback, where I did make a few changes. In the top 10, I downgraded Jordan Love and Kyler Murray because of the weather in that game. So players like Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, and Dak Prescott, I now have ranked above them, but I still think Love and Murray are top 10. They're just not as safe given the rain that's expected to happen in Green Bay. Outside the top 15, though, I did remove Joe Flacco from the top 20. I do think Richardson will get the start. So Flacco, I previously ranked at number 18. And that means Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence move up a little bit. And I do think they're both better than Aaron Rodgers. I actually upgraded Jones and Lawrence legitimately because Rodgers is a bit banged up, and the Chicago Bears secondary is very banged up themselves. Lawrence, I do think, is a more interesting play. In London, he has played well historically. So Daniel Jones and Lawrence are on the low end of the super flex conversation, but outside the top 15, I don't think you're starting them in one quarterback leagues. However, Joe Flacco moves down to QB 29. These other guys move up in the bottom of the ranks. Let's pivot to tight end now, where I actually didn't make a single change at tight end. Nothing is different, but Theo Johnson, I kind of feel a little too low on at number 20. A player to keep in mind overall. But lastly, at defense, I did make a few changes. There are 3 teams moving in the ranks. I think the Bears are less safe given their injuries in the secondary. They moved down 4 spots, now defense number 12. They're still talented, but without that secondary, I do think they will give up a lot more points to Jacksonville in London. The Packers also get a boost with the weather. I moved them up 7 spots, previously number 20, now number 13. I do think this will be a less high-scoring game against the Cardinals. But with the weather, I do think the Cardinals are a little more interesting as well. They're now defense number 21, but too low to start. I'm not starting the Cardinals this week on the road. So those are all of the changes for quarterback, tight end, and defense here on the screen. And the color-coded lines indicate my tiers. You're starting the top 10 at all 3 positions. I do think they give you viable scores overall. But in the streaming conversation above the orange line, I do think the top 14 quarterbacks, top 16 tight ends, and 15 defenses have some viable upside, decent floor in your lineup this week. Now let's pivot to my flex rankings, where overall at running back, I think there's a lot more safer options given the state of the position. With all those players being taken out, injured, I do think there are more safe plays. Bucky Irving, Antonio Gibson, Austin Eckler, most notably, get the highest upgrades. But Trey Sermon, less safe. Same with Najee Harris. I'd rather bench them outside the top 23. At wide receiver, though, I do think it's kind of dicey outside the top 25. It does get a lot more touchdown dependent, but I think once you pass Calvin Ridley, I'd rather just bench them as well. I think there are some safer plays at running back overall. So that's it for my rankings update. Here it is on the screen. You can pause it if you want to make those lineup decisions. But as always, you can also ask me questions in the comment section. I'm happy to answer those before kickoff. But lastly, I was tempted to make some changes with my win-loss picks, but I'm standing pat. However, I am making one change against the spread. The line on the Colts game has drastically changed. On Monday, I gave you the Colts -1. Now the Titans are 3-point favorites, and why would I not take those extra 4 points? I'm definitely taking the updated line. Give me the Colts +3. Why would I make this harder on myself? So that's the update overall. I'm still rolling with Washington +7, the Falcons -6, the Colts +3, the Jets +2.5, and the Arizona Cardinals +5.5. Those are my picks. That's it for this video. And if you enjoyed, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel for more content as well. And I wish you good luck this week. I hope you win. I'll see you next time. My name's Adam Riancho. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.